Hey everyone, and welcome to my craft room. This is one of our pre-recorded videos for our annual catalogue launch, our 2022 to 2023 annual catalogue launch. Thanks for joining me. I hope you're enjoying the day so far. We're going to be doing two cards in this video. The one of them has the Vintage Tools stamp set here on my left, and the other one is the Happiness Abounds stamp set here on my right. Happiness Abounds actually use elements from the whole suite, so it's really the Hues of Happiness suite that you're looking for if you like the card here on the right. The Vintage Tools set here with all its cute tools is it's ones people have sort of said they wouldn't have thought of buying. It really attracted my eye because of the sort of really nice font, sort of blocky font, and the fact that we all struggle with masculine cards, so this one sort of lends itself quite nicely to some lovely masculine cards, which we all need from time to time. Okay, so we might start with our more traditional Happiness Abounds card. This is the one we're doing here. I've actually got a couple of versions of it here. I did all my videos yesterday and then realised that I hadn't plugged my microphone in, so the sound was absolutely atrocious, so I'm doing them all again. But as I said to my friend online yesterday, I'm going to be totally smooth today. No hiccups or stuttering, because I've done this card so many times. Okay, so this is the one we're going to do. It's got the flowers here that I've stamped and coloured in with my blends. Now you could substitute the flowers from the designer series paper into that, which would be just as lovely, even possibly more so, but we will eventually lose the designer series paper. The annual catalogue lasts for 12 months, and you will then have your stamp set and your dies, which you probably need to get used to so that you can keep using them long after the paper has been discontinued. So this is the one we're going to make. As I said, a couple of versions of it there because I have actually done this video multiple times. I'm actually thinking of, since I've got so many versions of all these cards, I'm probably making a prize pack to somebody who's partaken of the day or who's taken part in the day, just to get rid of some of the excess cards that you do end up with multiples of when you do this sort of thing. So here we are. I've cut the card base and all the bits and pieces that I need. This is a square card, obviously a 5 by 5 card. So therefore the cardstock is 10 inches by 5 inches, scored at 5. So there's our card base. I'm going to make it a sort of a landscape version, so it opens up that way with the fold to the left, just because I think they sit nicer than trying to sit them up that way. They often collapse downwards, so it's going to be that one. So this is, as I say, the thick cardstock. This piece here is just normal basic white, and I have already popped that through the time-worn type embossing folder, which is the one I'm using at the moment to give everything that sort of oldie worldy sort of linen look, I suppose, in a way. But this one I haven't stamped anything yet on that, or at all on that one. It's just gone straight through the embossing folder. As with all my videos and all the sessions that we're going to have today, I will pop the product list and the measurements up on my website, so check for the link at some stage in group, and you'll be able to get all those details. As well, we will have of course, we'll have the host code specific for the event, and if you see anything that you would like to buy and you place an order as a result of the event, please use that host code, and I will pop all the rewards together at the end of the month, and there could be opportunity to win even more if you have purchased during, as a result of today. Okay, so I've just glued that time-worn type embossed panel to my card front, and that's basically all I need to do at the moment. Okay, so the rest of what I've got, little bits and bobs here, this is some of the designer series paper. So on the other side you can see it's got the pretty flowers. It almost breaks your heart cutting that paper up, but this time I actually just wanted the pink sort of paint strokes type design. I have cut this with the largest circle in our wonderful Stylish Shapes die set, so that's really a must-have. Probably those of you who've been around for a while will remember we had the stitched shapes a few years ago, which has been discontinued. So thankfully we've got our stitched circles back now, and our stitched squares, which are very, very handy. I've used those a few times, but even better now we've got these stitched banners, which I don't know that I'm using. I think we use it on one of the cards we do. No, I think it's a fun fold class I use that on, but yeah, so very, very handy, and a must-have if you didn't get to get our stitched shapes from a few years ago. Okay, so I've got that circle. Now this circle obviously is going to go in the middle or on top of our embossed panel. I'm going to make it a little bit higher than centre, so centered left and right, but a little bit higher than centre when I finally pop it on, only because when I popped the rest of the flowers around the original card, it sort of looked like it was too low, so everything needed to be shifted up a wee bit. And I did that on the second version, but probably not quite enough. So third time is a charm. I'll get it right this time. I'm sure I will. I've got a little piece of white there that we're going to use for our sentiment, and I'll explain to you what I've done to that shortly. But this is what I'm after at the moment. I'm after these die cuts here. So I have stamped and die cut the images I need from the stamp set, and I'll just show you which ones they are from the stamp set. Get rid of that. I've used the big flower here, the big bloom, the little sort of bud flower here, and this rose. So that's those three there, just stamped in black and die cut. And then I've done two of that leaf and two of that leaf. They're there as well. So just to save me having to get the machine out and waste time doing that, I've done those already. I'm going to grab my inks now. I popped them away after the last attempt at getting this video done. Probably shouldn't have. Now there's a hint. I hadn't closed off that light flirty flamingo there, so I'm hoping it's not dried out overnight. So you have to be really, really careful with your blends to make sure you click them, because they will, like all alcohol inks, they will dry out. So I've got my light and dark flirty flamingo, hopefully, my light and dark pale papaya, and I also wanted my light and dark polished pink. So that's for the flowers. And then I'm grabbing my light and dark green, granny apple green for the leaves. So let's get that on. And eventually I want my black marker to do the insides of that flower there. Okay, so let's get starting. We'll do the first one, the big flower first, and that's going to be in my flirty flamingo. So I'm going to, as we always do when I'm blending my cards, I'm going to use the dark first. I'm going to make them mostly dark, if that makes sense. I actually wanted, the first couple of attempts, I did them sort of just a little bit, but I think they need to actually be quite dark in this particular design, or at least that's what I preferred. So most of each of these leaves I'm going to colour with my dark blend, just leaving the very tips and those little curly over bits. You notice that when you stamp this one, some of the leaves look like they've sort of curled over at the top, and I'm leaving those as well. I'll bring it up close in a minute so you can see where I'm headed. Okay, so that's my dark. That worked okay. Let's see, hopefully my light is going to. I think that's the one that I left the lid off. And I'm just blending that in. So I'm going to blend it in for the what we call the underside of the leaves. So just with very small little circular motions, just blend in those dark colours. Or the dark shade of this colour, I suppose, is more accurate. And then once I've finished shading, because obviously the idea of blending is that some of the dark goes into the light and some of the light goes into the dark, just to give it that look. I will just use unblended. There's a fair bit there I hadn't done. Just use pure unblended light flirty flamingo on those edge bits there. So on the little bits that look like they're turned over. There we are. There we are. So we've got our lights and our darks all sort of lovely and blended there with that particular flower. And while I've got this one here, I'm going to get my black marker and just roughly colour in the middle. I don't want to get rid of all the white. I just wanted to mostly darken it out. So that one's done. Okay, so let's bring in one of our others, the rose. I'm going to, this little rose here, I'm going to use light and dark polished pink. And again, it's going to be mostly dark with a little bit of the light brought in at the edges. And stay within the lines there. There we are. So as I say, mostly dark. And then we're bringing in our light and we'll just do that blending again. Okay, there we are. And there is our polished pink rose there. Okay, so the last one, this little flower here, I'm actually going to bring in my dark, because I want to make the centre of that one quite dark. And the darker version of pale papaya, to me, seems to be Calypso Coral. So I'm going to use my dark Calypso Coral just on the very centre of this one, just in where the shadows would be, if there were any. Under the leaf tips and in there. So just a tiny bit of my dark Calypso Coral there. Then I might just lighten that a wee bit with the light Calypso Coral, just a tiny bit. And then I'll bring in my pale papayas. There we are. Now my dark pale papaya. There might not be any room for any light, but let's see. Just blending through all three of those colours. Nice. Okay, and just some tiny bits of the light pale papaya just at the very, very tips. And I'll show you that there. So that's really good. I like that darker centre for that one. I'm not going to bother with his little stem because it's going to sort of be poked up under the decoration anyway. Okay, so now they're leaves, as I said, just light and dark granny apple green. I've got another granny apple green blend on order at the moment. Basically learnt my own lesson too late, and my light granny apple green had its lid left off and ended up drying up. So it's still slightly usable, so I will leave a tiny bit here for some blending, but it's pretty much on its last legs just because the lid wasn't popped on properly. So I'm just putting a little bit of dark, or mostly dark to be honest, on each of these. And then I'll bring in my poor little light and just do a wee bit of blending. Okay, so there's our leaves done as well. Okay, so we can start bringing everything together now. Got our card base and our circle. Okay, so I might pop the circle on first. So again, as I say, I'm going to try and bring it a little bit higher than I did before, just so everything ends up being a nice central design. So same distance top and left and right, so central left and right, and there's a sunbeam there. I didn't realise it was that time of the day. And higher than it is low there. I wonder if it would help if I close that blind. Bear with me for a second. I don't think it will help because it comes through. Oh, there you go. That helped. Hopefully it hasn't made it too dark, but anyway, got rid of the sunbeam. Okay, so yeah, slightly higher than it is low, and then the same distance left and right. Okay, so we'll bring in our flowers. So, oh, yep, just pop some ink, glue on the bottom of this one. It's going to be on our bottom left-hand corner there. Just trying to bring that in so the distance here is roughly the same as the distance there. That's about it there, I think. Oh. It's very cool in the craft room today, very cold, and the glues and the inks sort of change the way they react in the weather. So this one is going to nestle just behind there. There we are, and then I'm bringing our beautiful pale papaya Calypso coral. Pop that in there. Okay. pretty flowers. And as I always say, we'll bring in the greenery now and it'll lift the whole design, as it usually does in my view. We'll bring in some leaves. Here we are. And a couple more. Here we are. Okay, so that's our decorations there. Really nice. This is my favourite version. I knew I'd be smooth after 3 attempts. Bit of a waste of cardstock though, but anyway, there we go. Okay, so now we'll do our sentiment. As I say, I have this piece of basic white cardstock. Now there is a die in the die set. Did I keep the die set here? Yes. There's a die in the die set that is like an edging die, and it just basically cuts a series of little circles in the cardstock. It's obviously quite long. You can use it on a full-length piece of cardstock. I've seen it done to designer series paper, to white. It gives the illusion of having just ripped a piece of paper off a Spyrex notepad. That's the sort of thing that they're going for with that. So you can see that there. I'm just going to stamp in black my sentiment. I'm going to just use happy birthday, just because I think I'll probably use multiple happy birthday cards where I probably wouldn't use, since I've got so many of this particular design. Pop that in happy birthday. Now I'm going to trim this down. Obviously it's far too big for our happy birthday, but I'm going to bring that in on the left hand side so you get a lot of that nice serrated perforated end, just like that. So that's our happy birthday. And now I'll grab my trimmer and I'll cut that down. So I only want it about half an inch wide. Bring that there to the half an inch mark. It's pretty good. And trim off the end. Someone's just got out of bed. I can hear them in the hallway behind me. Okay, it's nice and quiet here this morning. That's why I jumped on. Okay, so we have our happy birthday. I'm just going to pop that on some dimensionals. And bring it in from the sort of right hand side back to the left hand side for this one. There we are. Just like that. And of course we need some bling. Now these are the what are they? The polished dots. They're the excuse me, my voice just went croaky. The polished dots that you got in the in your goodie bag, if that's the option you went for this class. Yeah, so you've got a whole packet of these you can go mad with. They are on page 143 of the catalogue, the glossy dot assortment. So some really nice colours there. Gorgeous grape, melon mambo, daffodil delight and pool party. So for this design we're going to use the melon mambo. Grab my take your pick tool. Now they do sit quite flat to the paper, so I find it easy if you just give the plastic a wee bit of a kink, you can actually get them off a little bit easier. And they come in sets of 3, so 3 sizes, so I find it less wasteful just to use 3 different sizes on each card, which I think we used them on our craft along card today, so you'll see me do the same thing there. Here we are. Okay, so that's this one done. So there's our Hues of Happiness sweet card. So, and it is quite a sweet card. double meaning there. Okay, so let's put that away. Hope you like that one. And as I say, if you want to grab any elements from that after today, use the host code. Now, I only use the host code, and I'm probably going to say this a few times today, I only use the host code if your order is under $250. If your order is over $250, thank you very much for such a huge order for a start, but don't use the host code because you will get rewards straight from Stamping Up to the value of 10% of your order. So I'm just going to pop these away so I've got a bit of room to work. And we're going to do our Vintage Tools card. Now, for Vintage Tools, I said, well, talking while I'm working, which isn't usually a good thing. For a Vintage Tools card, I'll get rid of that one, so bye-bye. So I've got 3 of those now, so I'm thinking I probably will make some sort of prize pack out of those at the end of the day. Okay, so get those out of the way. Everything's going to drop on the floor, so I'll put it on the floor anyway. There we go. For our Vintage Tools card, it is just the simplest card. You're going to not believe it when you see what I've used. We have crumb cake cardstock. Hairs. I haven't got quite as much hair as I usually have, and it's my headset keeps falling off my head. We have crumb cake cardstock, which I've cut in a sort of a portrait card. We've used some watercolor pencils for giving these images a wee bit of light. We've used a strip of the He's the Man Designer Series paper, which is a lovely masculine paper in the current catalogue, which will probably pop up in a product class in the not too distant future. My dog's decided it's time to bark. Everyone's waking up now. And I've used the happy birthday here. The sentiments from the set are lovely. As I say, I love the blocky font, but I really wanted a nice big sentiment. So I've used the happy birthday out of Artistically Inked. So if you've got that one at home, but obviously you could use whatever sentiment you actually want. So I'll pop those aside. Basically, there's not much to this card at all. So there's our card base. I think this time I've actually made it a slightly bigger card base. It's actually 5 3/4 long. So the card stock itself is 11.5 by 4 1/8. Okay, I've rounded the edges with my edge trimmer. Now, Stamping Up doesn't actually have a corner punch anymore. I have an old one that I've had forever that I've used there, but if you can grab corner punches from most craft stores, and hopefully we'll have a Stamping Up version again one day soon. I have a piece of Whisper White basic white cardstock for the centre, and I've also rounded the edges of that. And as I say, an inch wide piece of our He's the Man Designer Series paper. I wonder what she's barking at. Okay, so that obviously eventually is going to sit on the bottom of our card with our sentiment at the bottom. But we've got a lot to do before we get to that. Okay, so I will pop the inner piece in. As I've mentioned, I'll put a link with all the products and all the measurements on my website. We can put a link in the group once the videos are all up. So don't worry too much about copying the measurements right now. Okay, so that's our centre bit there. We'll just keep our piece of cardstock safe. Okay, so now we're going to bring in my Smoky Slate ink, which is the ink I'm going to use for stamping our little tools. And where's the stamp set gone? Bet you I'm looking at it. Here we are, looking at it right there. And we're going to start, I usually start when I'm doing this sort of design, it's collage type stamping. I start with the big images first and then just sort of come down to fill in the gaps with the smaller ones. So this hammer is like the biggest image that we've got that we're playing with. So I'm just going to pop that one smack bang in the middle just as a sort of a guide to where the others are going to go. And I don't think in my originals I haven't actually used that image again. I've just used it as the centre. As you could pop a couple more in, but because it is so big, I found it a bit hard to judge where to put it any other time. So working our way down the sizes, I've got this sort of chisel one. So I'm going to bring a few of those in, and I'm just building this around with all the images sort of at right angles to each other sort of thing. So it's just like a grid almost of these images, sort of turning them 90 degrees. To each other. Now I've got to be careful here because in previous versions of this card I went too far down the bottom, and I don't want to go too far down because I want to be able to put my sentiment at the bottom. So just sort of trying to keep above that sort of line there, covering some of it with our paper of course, but yeah, we basically just want to keep below that, or keep above that line, so to speak. Okay, so that's probably enough of that one. And we'll bring in the next one down is a really cute pair of no, I might bring in the little, there's a little, it's either a screwdriver or some sort of leather working tool. So there's been a bit of a debate about what it actually is, but we'll go with it whatever it is because it's cute. And just bringing those in around the place. Because it's a nice little image, you can pop its little head into just about anywhere and it fits nicely. Okay, it might be enough of that one, I think. Now, there is a pair of pliers here as well. Probably should have been more of a focal that I made it, but when I was designing the original card, I sort of overlooked it to a certain degree, but thankfully its little head will fit in various places. I do want to bring one in down there. Now, I have to be careful, as you can see, if I pop that in there, it's going to go too far to the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll just ink up the top half of it. So just putting the top half into the ink, and then I can safely bring it in there without going too far down the page, which is good. I'll bring another one in here. Okay, that's probably enough of our big images. Now the stamp set has a little cluster of 4 little tacky nails, just, yeah, tacks I suppose they'd be. They don't look like proper nails. Okay, so obviously none of the patches on my card are actually big enough for the whole group of 4. So what I'm going to do is try and be very careful just to ink up that little end one that's sitting out there all by itself. And I'm going to bring that in to fill some of our spaces. So just a single tack. And that will help us. And I'm going to obviously rotate my oh, he went a bit close. My stamp. Eventually, that one actually got a little bit of ink on those other ones, so clean it off. So as you can see, I am filling in all those little gaps with that single tack. That went too close. It's a bit tricky when you're trying to video things. You can't come in over the top, and it makes it a bit tricky to see where you're placing things sometimes. So some of them have ended up a little bit too close, but that's okay. Okay, it's probably just about enough. There we are. So that's all our stamping done there. And as I say, being very careful to leave that sort of couple of centimetres or an inch at the bottom there. So just to give this card a little bit more of a sort of a oldie worldy feel in a way, I'm going to grab my, as I said, my watercolor pencils. I've got one brown that would be comparable to sort of early espresso. And I'm just going to colour very faintly, just a hint of colour, parts of the images that would be wooden, because these are old-fashioned tools that have, I assume, wooden handles, not like the plastic ones we have today. So I'm just going to give them a touch of the brown. Nearly there, just one to go, I think. There we are. Okay, so this one here would be comparable to our smoky slate pencil. Everyone's got some, well, I shouldn't judge, I suppose. Most people I know would probably have some pencils lying around from the kids or the grandkids, or even your own crafting. So this one's going to be just very, very faint on the bits that would be metal. Now you could also do each of the individual little tacks as well, but I might leave those here. Okay, I think that's about it. Yes, okay. So as I say, just a hint of colour of those, a hint of brown and a hint of grey, just to make those stand out a wee bit more. Okay, last couple of things to do for this card. Bring in the inch-wide strip of our He's the Man Designer Series paper. Now, the He's the Man Designer Series paper is really good because it comes with some cutouts, some sort of already stamped and cut out sort of paper images and sentiments and things like that. So it's a whole 2 sheets of them per pack, so you get plenty. And yeah, so you could basically make a quite cute masculine card from the Designer Series paper without even picking up a stamp. So it's really good if you're into no stamp cards. It is a really good pack for that purpose. So as I say, I'm actually planning on doing a product class with it in the next few months, so watch out for that. Yeah, you basically will not need a stamp pad or a sentiment. Well, hopefully, if I design it right. Okay, so I'm just using my happy birthday, as I mentioned, from the Artistically Inked. So I think that's really nice and blocky and sort of matches the rest of the design. And lo and behold, that card is done. Okay. Oh, and I stamped that in early espresso ink, by the way. Probably should have mentioned that as I was doing it. So there's our happy birthday. And there is our card. Okay, so that's the Vintage Tools card. Try and find the stamp set again. Here we go. So that's Vintage Tools. As I say, probably not one that's going to bounce out at you from the catalogue pages, but I really, really like it. And I think I'm going to try and use it quite a bit over the next little while just to get some masculine card ideas out there. As I say, many of us struggle with those, but we all generally have handy people or craftsmen or people that just love to potter in their shed in our life, so it would be perfect for the cards for them. And as I say, you can mix and match your sentiments if nothing in the stamp set actually appeals. So that's our 2 cards for this particular video. We have our Happiness Abounds card, which I've got many of them, but I've lost here on the floor. So our Happiness Abounds or Hues of Happiness Suite card here on the left, and our Vintage Tools card on the right. All the measurements and product lists, as I say, will be put onto my website, and I'll pop some links up once all the videos are up and active. But there we are. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Yeah, it's been a pleasure bringing you these cards, and I hope you like them. So I'll see you all again soon.